Hey boys and girls, today we're going to start VS.4, Life in Colonial Virginia. All right, so we're going to use this smartboard lesson today so that we can understand the everyday life in the Virginia colony. And you'll know you'll have it when you can describe the life of the Englishmen and Indians. Okay, so tobacco was already popular by the time Jamestown was established in 1607. People used pipes like these over here to your right to smoke the tobacco. The colonists saw that the Indians were planting tobacco. Now, when I say colonists, I mean the English colonists, the settlers that came from England. They saw that the Indians were planting tobacco. The tobacco that was native to Virginia was a harsh type of tobacco. That means it was not very good. So John Rolfe started growing a sweet scented crop of tobacco from seeds that he had gotten from the Caribbean. The colonists soon discovered that England would pay more for the sweet scented tobacco. They decided to grow more and more tobacco. In 1616, they exported. That means they sent 2,300 pounds of tobacco. And in 1618, they exported almost 50,000 pounds of tobacco. That's a lot more in 2 years. So they went from just sending 2,300 pounds of tobacco to sending 50,000 pounds. That's how much more that the people in England liked the sweet scented tobacco. John Rolfe is also famous for another reason. Do you remember who he married? Well, a lot of people think that Pocahontas married John Smith because that's how it is portrayed in the Disney movie Pocahontas. But Pocahontas in real life really did not marry John Smith. She married John Rolfe. All right, so green gold. So when we're talking about green gold, they're talking about tobacco, because when the English settlers made it to Jamestown and made a permanent settlement, they didn't find gold and silver like they thought that they would, but they learned how to grow tobacco. So they considered that their green gold. This was their way of making a living. So you have to know the vocabulary term cash crop. A cash crop that is a crop that is grown to sell for money rather than for use by the growers. So they grew the tobacco to sell, not to smoke for themselves. All right, now this vocabulary term is just a review. Agriculture, you have to remember that it is growing crops and raising animals for food and trade. So here are some examples of agriculture. You have corn, pigs, tobacco, wheat, and chickens. All right, so tobacco. The economy of the Virginia colony depended on agriculture as a primary or main source of wealth. That means that's how they made their money. That's how they made their living. Tobacco became the most profitable agriculture product. And what that means is that's where they made the most of their money. And tobacco was sold in England as a cash crop. So the colonists soon discovered that tobacco crops were a lot of work. It took a whole year's work to grow tobacco crops. This is what they had to do. They first had to gather the tiny seeds, grow them early in the year in cold frames, and that's just little containers inside. Transport the plants outside when the soil got warmer, weed throughout the summer, top off the plants, harvest the leaves individually, bundle the leaves for drying, and more. So who was going to do all that work? The English colonists could not keep up. They couldn't grow enough tobacco to make the amount of money that they wanted. So the way that the cultivation of tobacco became successful, that means the way that they made their money from growing tobacco depended on a steady and inexpensive source of labor. So, large numbers of African men, women, and children were brought to the colony and enslaved to work on the plantations in order to grow the tobacco. The Virginia colony became dependent on slave labor, and that dependence lasted a very long time. All right, boys and girls, here's where I want you to get out a piece of paper and a pencil. So if you have to pause your video for just a minute to do that, go ahead and do that, and then you can restart. But you're going to create, and this can take up your whole page, you're going to draw 4 squares with a circle in the middle, and you're going to write cash crop, and we're going to write the definition of it, a picture, we're going to write some examples and non-examples, okay? So our definition is, and I'm going to make this a different color so that you nope, actually it's just going to stay black. Here we go. A crop that is grown to sell for money and not all right, so a cash crop is a crop that is grown for money and not to be used by the farmer, okay? For the picture, you may draw any picture that you would like. I'm going to draw tobacco as big leafy. It's a big leafy plant, so there's mine. So some examples of cash crops may be, all right, and I'm just going to write a few. So it may be football fields full of the same crop. Hundreds of acres of corn. Three large fields of soy. Okay, these 3 examples are way more than one person could use on their own. So those are examples of a cash crop, somebody that's going to sell that cash crop, that crop that they grew, to make money on. They're not going to use it themselves. So some non-examples of a cash crop might be tomato plants in backyard, because that just one person might grow 2 tomato plants, right? Another non-example might be herbs in a pot on the porch. You wouldn't sell those, right? Or enough green beans for the family. Right, so all of these would be non-examples. These are examples of things people might grow just to use for themselves. All right, boys and girls, so what you're going to do is, after you have this completed on your notebook paper, you're going to take a picture of this Frayer model and you're going to upload it to this page on